Beginning. Agent Ethan Burke of the United States Secret Service awakens from an automobile collision outside of Wayward Pines, Idaho. Once they were in town, he remembers driving with Agent Stallings looking for Agents Kate Hewson and Bill Evans before passing out at a coffee shop. He receives a message from Beverly, a barman, containing the address where Agent Evans's decomposing corpse can be found. He submits this information to Sheriff Pope, who seems unconcerned. Beverly assists Ethan in getting away from the hospital after he is admitted, despite the psychiatrist Dr. Jenkins' suggestion for surgery. Dr. Jenkins informs Adam Hassler, Ethan's supervisor in Seattle, that everything is proceeding according to schedule. Teresa, Ethan's wife, questions if her husband has absconded with his previous mistress, Kate. When Ethan discovers Kate in Wayward Pines, she claims to have lived there for 12 years, yet she is much older than when he last saw her, 5 weeks earlier. When Ethan robs a car to go out of town, he finds that the only ways out of Wayward Pines are blocked by a tall, electrified fence. He's told he will never be able to go by Sheriff Pope. Disobeying Pope's directives to remain still, Ethan visits the mortuary to go over Evans's clothes and takes out his journal, which contains a map of the area. When he finds out Evans was married, he talks to his widow, who tells him her husband killed himself in front of her. After taking out the tracking devices they had inserted, Ethan and Beverly make plans to flee as they search the map for a route beyond the gate. In the meantime, Ben and Teresa, Ethan's son, left for Idaho in search of their father. Kate and her husband Harold Ballinger extend an invitation to supper to Ethan and Beverly before they can make their getaway. There, breaking one of the community's regulations, Beverly slips up and brings up something from her recent past. She runs away with Ethan in a panic. Kate assures Harold that they will definitely flee. As phones start ringing around the community, residents get together to look for Ethan and Beverly, who eventually part ways. Sheriff Pope calls it a reckoning when he finds Beverly and executes her in front of the entire village. Ben and Teresa accompany Ethan to Wayward Pines, but Sheriff Pope stops them in their tracks. The Burkes are back together, but not before Ethan goes to face Sheriff Pope and tells Teresa about the strange happenings. When Ethan first meets Kate, she tells him that despite her years of attempts to flee, the only way to live is to comply. Ben and Teresa attempt to escape after seeing Ethan and Kate together, but Sheriff Pope stops them. Ethan steps in and uses his own rifle to shoot Pope in the end. Using Pope's remote, Ethan opens a gate in the perimeter fence, but something breaks through and pulls Pope's body past the fence before the Burkes can leave. Ethan shuts the gate upon hearing howls of the beast. Ethan tells Teresa everything he knows about Wayward Pines, and they decide to act like a happy family while he looks into it. Mayor Brad Fisher informs Ethan that he has been appointed the new sheriff. Playing along, Ethan quickly discovers a secret file cache containing details about the people living in the village, including their past identities. The mayor's wife, Megan Fisher, the principal of Wayward Pines Academy, greets Ben and tells him she used to be a hypnotist. Ethan and Nurse Pam argue about insurgent realtor Peter McCall. Ethan instead leads the man to the surrounding fence in the hopes of hiding him after receiving a strange call telling him that Peter needs to face his reckoning. Peter points out that the only route out of the town is over the cliff. Knowing that Ethan must follow instructions in order to buy time to unravel the mystery of Wayward Pines, Peter ends his own life by creating the impression that Ethan shoved him into the electric fence. Later, with an enigmatic person waiting for him on the other side of the fence, Ethan starts climbing the rock face in an attempt to get away and obtain help. The truth. When Ethan makes his way through the woods into Boise, he is pursued and sliced by vicious creatures that resemble humans. Ben discovers some information about Wayward Pines during his academy orientation. Due to a sequence of genetic mutations, humans have developed into Abbies, aberrations, and as a result, they are now ferocious carnivores that rule a ruined Earth in the year 4028. In essence, Wayward Pines is an ark designed to reintroduce and safeguard the human race in order to secure its future. The citizen abductees of the town were held in hibernation chambers for more than 2 millennia before being awoken. Students are informed by Principal Fisher that they cannot tell their parents this information. Ethan stumbles onto Boise's historic ruins. Dr. Jenkins, introducing himself as Wayward Pines creator David Pilcher, comes in a helicopter. he tells us that the town is the lone safe haven for humanity. As they visit the town's covert command center, Dr. Pilcher gives Ethan a tour and explains Wayward Pines' past. Pilcher was rejected by the scientific community after he identified the mutant gene and prophesied the arrival of the Abbies in the 1990s. Although he managed to get some volunteers for his mission, the majority of them were kidnapped. After more than 2 millennia of keeping everyone in cryo chambers, Pilcher and his closest allies, including Pam, awoke in 4014 to discover that they were the last living humans. When Group A of the villagers first awoke, they were informed of the reality of the world outside of Wayward Pines. They were all killed, either by violent anarchy, suicide, or escape, and becoming victims of the Abbies, unable to cope with the truth. Pilcher knows that a disgruntled secret faction is preparing to break the wall, but the adults of the existing Group B have not been informed of the whole truth. Pilcher roused Ethan to bring discipline to Wayward Pines. Ethan is prepared, but only under his conditions. Concurrently, the Ballingers are constructing a bomb as a component of their ultimate escape strategy, betrayal. When Ethan informs Teresa that it is the year 4028, she believes a sinister deed has been committed against him. After discovering a pipe bomb in his car, he starts looking into the plot. After learning that Franklin Dobbs, a former explosives expert, installed the device, Ethan quickly learns that Harold is a member of the covert organization. He makes the right assumption that Kate is the group's leader. Kate tells Teresa that during her first week at Wayward Pines, she received a call from Hassler, and she believes that Ethan's account of what is behind the fence is the product of brainwashing. Kate advances the group's plan to breach the wall for that evening. Before Kate and her cronies can succeed, Ethan stops them at the gate, but he quickly finds out that another bomb is being transported in a delivery truck to the border. When Amy accidentally sets off the bomb, he is after it and finds Amy hurt, and Ben unconscious and covered in blood. Pilcher assigns Pam to go into his suspicions that a member of his surveillance team is assisting the rebels. Ben is awakened, and Dr. Fisher informs him that while Ethan had the bomber under control, he was allowed to go because he is Harold, Kate's spouse. When Ethan approaches an incarcerated Kate, she declines to assist him in his inquiry. Harold stays behind for Kate while Alan and he steal a dump truck to smash through the gate. When Alan crosses the fence carrying the body of a fellow conspirator he intends to bury, Abbies attack the two right away. Just in time, Ethan reaches the fence to prevent 3 Abbies from breaking through. Harold is persuaded by him to tell him the names of the other 14 conspirators, but Ethan quickly discovers that they have all removed their monitoring devices and vanished from sight. Led by Jason Higgins, 3 young men from the first generation break into the jail with the intention of taking Franklin, Kate, Harold, and 2 more with them. Arlene first thwarts them, but they return later, and this time, Jason kills everyone but Kate, who only lives when Ethan shows up to shoot her assailant. Teresa has entered the tunnel system beneath plot number 33, prompted by a troubled Pam, and she shows Ethan and Kate a video of Adam Hassler reporting from the ruins of San Francisco in the year 4020. Ethan demands that everyone in the village attend, telling Pilcher that he now thinks he needs to take Kate seriously. Rather, Ethan gives them the whole truth about Wayward Pines and Pilcher. Pilcher observes and turns off the town's electricity, including the fence. After learning of Pilcher's actions, Ethan and Kate lead the gathered citizens to the bunker beneath Plot 33, but not before the Abbies start showing up and killing as many people as they can. Jason goes to another bunker with first-generation members to seek protection while still recuperating from Ethan's gunshot wound. Pam refuses to have her frozen because she believes Pilcher wants to start over with Group C and clear out the community. Abbies follow the villagers as they escape from the bunker to the mountain complex through a tunnel. As Pilcher's security unit prepares to freeze the volunteers revolt and reawaken Pam, who ends up killing Pilcher. Ethan gives his life in order to stop the remaining Abbies while the survivors, including Teresa and Ben, are secure inside the compound. After suffering an injury, Ben awakens in the hospital 3 years later. Amy, a nurse by then, informs him that they are keeping an ear out for him. Upon strolling around the town, Ben discovers that Jason has taken up the role of sheriff, and dead bodies are draped over lampposts with placards that read, "Do not try to leave. Enemy lines." In the year 4032, two groups have emerged in Wayward Pines. The first generation, under the official leadership of Jason Higgins, with assistance from Megan Fisher, who employ any means necessary to uphold Pilcher's original vision, and a group of rebels operating underground under Ben Burke's leadership, who are against the first generation's strict rule. Dr. Theo Yedlin is a successful surgeon who received a vision from Arnold Pope about 2,000 years ago in Hawaii. Yedlin can help 1,000 people. After becoming confused and awakening at Wayward Pines, Yedlin is informed that he is a participant in a government experiment by Jason and his assistant Carrie Campbell. The important person they ask him to operate on is Kate Hewson. The procedure goes well, but after talking with Megan, Kate ends her own life. Theo then sees his wife Rebecca in the crowd as he watches members of Ben's organization being publicly executed. To put an end to more killings, Ben and Xander give themselves in, and Theo throws them into a truck. The group now has to contend with Abbies approaching them after the vehicle is sent to the other side of the gate. At the electric fence, a large number of Abbies give their lives in order to create a body heap that will assist other Abbies to scale the wall. After Jason and his squad foil the attempt, Jason had to let Theo save him because Carrie is hurt. Teresa is rather concerned since Ben is left alone on the opposite side. With more clout, Theo presses Jason for an explanation before going after Carrie. Jason informs him about the reality of Wayward Pines. Rebecca has lived in Wayward Pines for 3 years, as Theo finds out. Jason is informed by CJ that the food growing on the other side of the wall is ready to be harvested, and while doing so, a crew repels the Abbies with flamethrowers and firearms. Ben makes an unsuccessful attempt to board a truck and head back. Ben discovers a camera at the fence and uses it to inform anyone who happens to be looking that Jason killed a first-generation inhabitant, which is against Pilcher's regulations. Then Abbies takes over Ben. Jason believes they finally drove the Abbies away since he can't see any of them on camera, but shortly after, one crosses the edge of a cornfield. The first infant to awaken in Wayward Pines, Jason, is told the story by Pam Pilcher, along with how special his upbringing was. Pam quickly devises a scheme to spread the smallpox virus around the area when Jason publicly pardons her. Pam refers to Wayward Pines as a mistake and believes Jason should allow the last of mankind to pass away in peace. While the virus is still in the incubation stage, Pam is discovered and contained. Theo approaches Rebecca after hearing Pam describe what transpired in Hawaii more than 2,000 years ago and implies that she was one of Pilcher's volunteers. Megan teaches young teens at the academy how to become pregnant as soon as they begin menstruation. Jason follows Pam into the woods after she commits transgressions, where she is strangled to death. The third person Jason sends to the other side of the fence, Xander, ends up in a pit that the Abbies dug. He escapes and makes his way back to the town, where he runs into a disheveled and severely bearded Adam Hassler. After Theo tends to Hassler, Jason questions Theo to find out if Hassler divulges any information regarding the Abbies. Jason reveals that Hassler is the lone one of 12 nomads who Pilcher sent out to explore the world outside of Wayward Pines a number of years ago. Teresa is adamant about joining the team in order to locate Ben, and she holds Hassler accountable after she finds his body. In another scene, Lucy, a girl who is not even 12 years old, reveals that she has begun to menstruate, and Rebecca tries to shield her from Megan's reproductive mandate. Frank observes Abby, who is sedated before being investigated by Megan and her group. This is the first time they have ever seen or captured a female Abby. A flashback to the early 2000s, when Pilcher approached Rebecca about being the principal architect for Wayward Pines, reveals her past. Enthusiastic, Rebecca created the whole town's layout, but changed her mind when Megan disclosed the exact date the town will be constructed. Rebecca claims that she was abducted by Pilcher at the present-day Wayward Pines. She also tells Theo that she and Xander are married. Teresa says she wants to stay on that side of Wayward Pines so she can be near Ben, while CJ and his group have made camp outside the walls. Hassler admits that he wanted to get rid of Ethan and be near Teresa, so he sent him on a mission to find Kate and get kidnapped by Pilcher's men. He only decided against being one of Pilcher's volunteers after Teresa and Ben trailed Ethan. Abbies attack CJ's squad and burn the remaining crops outside the gate. Teresa has serious injuries. Arriving to save as many people as possible are Jason and his army. Following Rebecca's assistance in helping them acquire weaponry from the mountain facility, Xander and a small squad assist in the rescue. Theo is forced to organize a hurried triage because multiple people require hospital treatment. After the onslaught, Mario informs Jason that less than 20 humans remain in their fighting group, having murdered 35 of them. When Hassler pays Teresa, who is dependent on life support, a flashback reveals him feeling guilty over allowing Pilcher to kidnap Ethan. Bedtime story. Not long later, Teresa becomes unresponsive. The food that was previously gathered, according to CJ, will expire in roughly 6 weeks. Theo also points out that there are critically low supplies of some medications and medical supplies. Megan scans the female patient Abby, who is identified as Margaret by the lab technician. Theo notes that Margaret's brain has double the size of a normal human's thinking center. After finding out that a female named Abby is being held captive, Hassler asks Theo if she has a distinguishing mark on her palm, which she possesses. Starting in 2034, CJ will be awakened from his cryo chamber every 20 years for a brief period of time, allowing him to witness the gradual annihilation of humanity through flashbacks. He meets one of the last humans on Earth in 2514. The man has clawed fingers that indicate the start of the mutant gene. In 4014, Pilcher and CJ wake up, and Pilcher is shocked to see an Abby because he believes the mutation should have finished by then. Megan is getting ready to celebrate Group A's awakening in 4016, but CJ tells her that it will be quite the shock. Theo tries to talk to Margaret in the present by using flashcards because he thinks Abby is very smart, but Megan doesn't think so. Tests reveal Margaret's dominance over the Abbies, the males. Hassler quickly establishes that Margaret is their leader and that the number of Abbies beyond the fence is rising as a result of her confinement. Margaret suggests that Theo be the leader in front of Jason and Carrie. Furious, Jason opens fire on the imprisoned man Abbies, killing him, but Carrie saves him from killing Margaret. Subsequently, Margaret finds herself by herself with Megan. Margaret uses the lock combination she saw Theo use to break out of her cage, then slashes Megan with a scalpel until she bleeds to death on the ground. Rebecca discloses her pregnancy to Xander as they talk about their future together. Carrie is informed by Theo that the harm caused by Abby's attack is too great for her to have a child. Theo soon discovers Margaret's empty cage and Megan's lifeless body. Jason sends soldiers to try and gun down the Abby leader after raising the alarm throughout the community. Rebecca breaks into Jason's office and takes hard copies of the old town plan before Wayward Pines was built on top of it, in an attempt to figure out how Margaret entered and possibly where she could escape. As Margaret looks to be ready to strike Rebecca, Xander shoots Abby in the wrist and hand. Margaret makes her way inside an abandoned water duct as she runs into the woods. When he sees her, Hassler raises his rifle, but he quickly lowers it and releases Margaret. Margaret is quickly followed by Hassler via the pipe. Carrie is shown a hidden chamber containing a pair of cryopods by Jason, who claims they will be able to resurrect as Adam and Eve in the future. Carrie then makes the shocking revelation that she is childless. In 2013, Pilcher visits Walcott Prep and meets Abigail, a pregnant student who is putting up her child for adoption. Pilcher bases this visit on the necessity of creating a bridge across generations in Wayward Pines. But later on, Abigail loses the child. The Abby horde in Wayward Pines today has grown by a factor of 10 or more. Jason comes to the conclusion that the only chance for mankind to survive is to return everyone to cryosuspension, since he knows the Abbies would eventually break the wall and easily defeat the humans. Jason assigns CJ and Theo to handle the details. CJ discovers they can only accommodate around half of the people and cannot power all of the cryopods. Theo disagrees with Jason's suggestion that they pick the finest and discard the flawed and subversive, believing that selection should be random. In 2013, Pilcher goes to see another young lady, Carrie, who has consented to allow him to adopt her child. Returning to the present, Jason discovers private documents and discovers the terrible fact that Carrie is his mother. After an angry altercation with Carrie, Jason's gun goes off. Later, a bloodied Jason is seen lying down by Carrie. Margaret recuperates beyond the gate and gathers the Abbies in anticipation of an assault. Theo tries in vain to save Jason after he is taken to the hospital in critical condition. Oscar advises that Theo let Jason die after pointing out a crucial surgical step he overlooked. Margaret is rallying the Abbey attackers at the perimeter as CJ and Theo plot to place as many inhabitants in cryosuspension as possible. Theo concurs with CJ that they don't have enough time to change Jason's plan, even if he is unhappy about how the other residents would be excluded. Theo finds out that Xander will stay behind when Rebecca enters cryopreservation. Theo decides to infect himself with the lethal viruses Pilcher had brought with him in an attempt to start an outbreak and potentially wipe out the Abbies before humans wake up again. After learning of the scheme and injecting herself, Carrie leaves to meet and be devoured by the Abbey horde, declaring that Theo will be needed more than she will in the future. A female Abbey is seen cradling what appears to be a human baby in the final scene.